Spelunx. Ball. Hi, this is Spelunx, I guess. Wandering through all these old Cyan games, so here we are. Open up the door, okay. That's okay. Oh. Didn't like that. Now it's thinking too hard, okay. P pseudoscope. Okay. Cool. Satellite. Alright. Yeah. Saturn. Okay. Yeah, that's Saturn. It's Earth. Does look like Earth. Welcome to Earth. Jupiter. Okay, yeah. I can see the big red spot. Sure. Io. Alright. Oh, it does not like transitioning in this game. Oh, oh. Alright. Okay. Oh, okay. A bat in a tree hits the bugs. Hits the sock.
A bat in a tree hit the sock.
Okay. A slow tree gets old. It's old glue. In hugs.
A slow tree gets old glue in hug.
Perfect. That's what I always wanted. Okay. Meow. Meow. Terrarium temperature. Oh geez, I made it way too hot. Oh. Hi, buddy. Okay. This man loves bread. Only lightly toasted bread. No. Oh.
A slow tree gets old, glue in hug.
Okay.
A slow tree gets old, glue in hug.
That's fair. Oh, love. Uh-huh. Oh, there's our friend the manhole bunny. Osmo lives. Okay. Oh, that guy. I like Ike. It's a microphone. Someone's listening to us. Earth. There's Mist Island. Bart. Annie. Okay. You did it. Yay. Okay, well, sure. Oh. March. Lighting distance. Lightning distance. Oh. Oh, okay. So it's just showing me how long lightning takes to get here. Oh. Okay. Huh. Does not like be going into these Spelunx caves. That's the elevator. I don't want an elevator right now. I did this one, didn't I? Yeah, I did. I did this one. Okay, well, I guess we'll go back up. I mean, we've seen everything there is to see. Oh, fine. We'll go back in. If you're gonna be like that. Really does not like loading stuff in this game. Oh, I see. Because it's now December. There's a snowman. Oh, navigating this sucks. Okay, let's... I did it. Okay, great. Oh. Okay. Argon. Cadmium's glowing with a different color. The sun. Oh. Okay. Demo. RAM. Battery RAM. Okay. Alright, let's stick this in. Hit record. We'll, Here's my neck. And we'll get the green glasses on there. There we go. And we'll use some purple in here. So, and then we'll go to black and we'll write Durgon. Wow, it's just like you were there. I mean, that's a cute toy. Especially for the time period. Durgan. Yay. Okay. Oh, button. Spelunx. A rocket got away.
Oh yes, welcome to Spelunx.
Oh, thanks. Okay, Professor A. Spelunx, with help from Mr. Pseudo. I in this paper document my own discoveries of the solar system. Ooh, it's a very big place. After I settled down in the Spelunx cave system, which Pseudo and I created, I began to ponder the stars. Ponder is something like wonder, except with a P. Pseudo had the clever idea to build a device which we could look at the stars more closely. I built this device and named it the Pondering Pseudoscope. Pseudo prefers to call it the P-Pseudoscope, the Pseudoscope. Thanks are some of the things I have discovered with the aid of Mr. Pseudo and the P-Pseudoscope. There are 9 planets in the solar system. That's not true anymore. It's okay, though. Yeah. These planets differ greatly in size. Ooh. Dang, look at these sick planet facts. Alright. Spelunk Builder. Pages are intentionally left nearly blank. Okay. History of Spelunx, or how I met Professor Spelunx. There's a town nestled in the quiet corner of the Yoyon Mountains on Yoyon Isle. It is a colorful town with a happy town. It's a town where I was born. Streets are paved with cobblestones, and every building is painted a different color. Pine trees tower above the rooftops, and a delicate smell of pine wafts through the quiet streets. The king of this town was getting very, very old, and he decided he must appoint a successor to his throne, for he had no children. When I was still young, the king and his council announced the Great Games, a contest to choose the next king or queen of the town. Naturally, there was much excitement in our little town during the weeks prior to the Great Games. Preparations were being made. People were practicing the events. A great feast was prepared. The streets were alive with talk and activity. The taverns were filled with old men bragging about their daughters and sons. Blue and yellow banners were hung across the sky announcing the coming of the games. Maids and servants gossiped in the back rooms of the castle. As the great games came closer and closer, the city's inns began to overflow with business and joviality. The little town was quickly growing into a metropolis. Where was I during all this? For the most part, I was working hard in the local smithy. I was apprenticed to the town blacksmith. While all this excitement went on around me, I busily forged the tools, decorations, horseshoes, javelins, armor, and equipment that would be used in the games. Oh, me. Hi. I was too young to participate in the games. It was my duty to help the mastersmith. But even the mastersmith was too caught up in the excitement to get much work done. I found myself alone in the smithy many afternoons while the mastersmith relaxed and gossiped in the local taverns. So on one of these busy afternoons that something odd happened. I was busily hammering and shaping a helmet. The room glowed red with fire from the kiln. Sweat poured from my skin as echoes of metal beating on metal bounced from wall to wall. The mouth of the kiln was stretched wide like the jaws of a dragon. Suddenly, white sunlight flew into the room. I turned, and there, framed in a shroud of white light, was the silhouette of an enormous figure. I lost a breath and paused before I responded to this dramatic entry. "I'm sorry, sir. You startled me. How can I help you?" Not saying a word, the strange figure took a quick look inside and closed the door behind him. It startled me even more, and I stepped backwards, knocking over a bucket of water. "You are very young to be a blacksmith," he abruptly said as he strode towards me. In the dim light, I could see more clearly. He wore a black robe that reached from his neck to the ankles of his black boots. A fanciful hat was perched on his head, and his face was covered with a black mask. "Who are you?" I asked with a shaking voice. "I go by many names, but you may call me Count Alexander," he answered. He answered with a voice of iron, and his eyes flashed with his mask. "Now that I've answered your question, you answer mine. Are you the master smith?" No, Your Excellency, I am only his apprentice. My name is Pseudo. I am sorry, but the Mastersmith is currently... Never mind about the Mastersmith. It is you I am looking for. I have heard your skills exceed your master's. I stood still as stone, not knowing how to answer. Oh. No, I'm not done. It's about your skills, Mr. Pseudo. Regardless, I want you to create for me a masterpiece. A masterpiece? What do you mean? You are the order of the great games. Yes. Are you aware that the most vital contest decide the winner out of the finalists? For reply, he pointed to the sky and announced the final contest is Yodel Toasters, and the rules state that every participant must supply his or her own toaster. Do you have a toaster, I asked? Yes, 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 he said, looking perturbed, but I don't have a masterpiece. Meanwhile, he quickly stepped within an inch of my face. In a low, quiet tone, he said, I want you to make the greatest toaster ever. The toaster that will help me win the games and make me king. Shiver of excitement ran down my spine. This masked count was providing me the greatest challenge of my life. This mysterious man in black was daring me to create a toaster that shined like the sun. Toaster that cooked toast to perfection. A toaster whose coils gleamed with pure orange heat. This stranger wanted me to craft the perfect toaster. I could not refuse. Swallowed hard, looked him in the eyes, lifted my chin and said, I will do it, and you will be king. Smiles spread across his uncovered mouth as he stood tall and strong. Thank you, kind Pseudo. Here is a bag of gold for now. When the toaster is finished, I will give you another bag of gold. He threw me a small velvet pouch, bowed gracefully, spun, and left the room before I could thank him. Next 3 nights were sleepless. I spent my days working on my usual jobs while I spent my nights creating the masterpiece the masked man ordered. My eyes hung heavy with the monotony of the day, but I came awake at night. I sweated and labored for hours in the stillness and slowly under the hot forge fire. The toaster began to take shape. 3 days later, a masterpiece stood before me. Glittering in the firelight, its silver casing was formed and contoured to perfection. Light seemed to dance on its surface like the surface of a crystal lake. Its ebony lift lever glided like ice, its lift spring taut, waiting to release its bound power. Fire behind me had begun to die as I slumped lower into my chair, admiring my creation as I fell into sleep. Soon I was dreaming of toasters, just like the After Dark screensaver collection. I dreamed that my toaster was in front of hundreds of smaller toasters, and they were all cheering and applauding my toaster. Yay! Yay! The best toaster! My toaster walked in front of the castle and sat in the king's throne. A smaller toaster approached my toaster and placed a crown upon his head. The crowd cheered again, and I fell into a deeper and deeper sleep. Mr. Pseudo! What? I cried as I jumped out of my chair, waking suddenly. There in front of me stood the masked Count Alexander. It was still night, and tiny stars peeked through the cracked door. Furnace had died down to a mere reddening simmer. I see you have finished my toaster. He took a fresh piece of bread from beneath his cloak and dropped it in the machine. I waited with bated breath. The ultimate toaster. A moment later, the toast jumped high into the air. He caught it and took a bite. Perfect, he whispered and sighed with relief. Except, he continued, I am left-handed and this is a right-handed toaster. No. For a moment, a flash of fear pulsed through my veins, and then I suddenly thought of an old blasphemous maxim. If you can't fix it, feature it. No, Your Excellency, I replied. This toaster is right-handed and left-handed, I said as I picked up the toaster and turned it the other direction. Very clever, Mr. Pseudo. I see why they call you a master of the craft. He paused and picked the toaster up as if to examine it more closely. He looked startled and said, This toaster's heavy. Why, it must weigh 15 pounds. You're right, Your Excellency, I answered with a slight bow of my head, but you will find that this toaster is more powerful than any toaster that exists on this planet. An active matrix heating element expresses a more controlled heat, which will cause your toast to cook faster. In addition, the use of lead-acid battery instead of conventional nickel-cadmium in association with the intelligent power management options will give you much longer and more consistent battery life. Very good, Mr. Pseudo. Very good. Now here's the rest of the money I promised you, he said as he handed me another velvet bag. I bowed again, and when I looked up, both the toaster and the masked man were gone, and with a chill, wind whistled through the half-closed door of the smithy. The great games were a week away, and I worked hard in the smithy with all the odd jobs while the preparations went on around me. I never saw the masked count, and I began to wonder if it was all a dream. The week passed slowly, and each day I grew more excited, thinking of the games and thinking of Count Alexander. When the feast day arrived, I could hardly express my excitement. The bells of the church rang loudly in the morning, and everyone gathered in the town square and surrounding streets for the opening feast. Tables were set in every place where there was a bit of room, and in some places where there were no room, and every table was a different color. People were everywhere, even on the rooftops. Men and women were dressed in the finest and brightest clothes. Children scampered and laughed. Banners and colored string fluttered from every building. Jest rose from the town as a chorus. The smell of the food was delicious. Roasts and hams and honey cakes and pies, sweet milk and turkey and cheese from every capital, apple cider and bacon and waffles and hot maple candies, and everything else you could consider wonderful and delicious. It was all there. The smell spread into every corner of every room of every house. No one could stay away. But someone did stay away, the mysterious Count Alexander. I looked for him all morning, but he was nowhere to be found. And I began to fear that he was an illusion, or maybe he had changed his costume, so I didn't know who he was. I looked for someone who was tall, but there was no one as tall as the Count. Surely he would come to a feast, I thought, but there was no one like Count Alexander, so I ate and enjoyed myself, but always with one eye searching for the Count. Feast ended in the afternoon. It was time for the calling of the contestants. Kid stood on a stage with a quarter of a square, with his arms around the shoulders of two assistants. His long white beard nearly touched the ground. He turned to his assistant on the right and mumbled something into his ear. Oh, calling of the contestants. Oh. The man held the king's right hand high in the air, and the crowd settled down into silence. The king whispered something else into the man's ear, and nodding his head said to the audience, "His Royal Highness wishes to have all the contestants of the great games called forward." There was a general murmuring in the crowd as the king was helped back down in his chair. A large man in blue, holding a very long list, walked forward, put on a pair of tiny spectacles, and the crowd was quiet. Ooh, tiny spectacles. Aaron, he yelled, and then Abbott, Abdul, Abebi, Abel, Ablin, Abigail, Abner, Abraham. One by one, men and women began to come to the front of the square. So at certain names, the crowd would start to applaud, and the man who was calling names would have to raise his hand in a quieting gesture. He would say, "If you aren't quiet, we're going to have to cancel the entire contest." Everyone knew this wasn't true, but they tried to obey him nonetheless. Adler, Ariana, Agatha, Ahmed. A shiver ran down my spine as I realized that the name Alexander should be called soon. I shifted to the edge of my seat. Aiken, Eileen, Alan. A lump rose in my throat. Albim, Alberta, Alcott. Held my breath. Aldwin, Alec, Alessia. My heart froze. Alfred. What? Alfred? What about Alexander? Alexander comes before Alfred. There was no Alexander. Suddenly I remembered he called himself Count Alexander. Oh, I was thinking. Waited through the seas just as anxiously, but I was disappointed. Actually, the entire list was read, and the crowd of hundreds stood before us. The king grinned, and the man with the glasses drank a big glass of water, rubbed his throat, and sat down. There was no Count Alexander. I slouched in my chair, disheartened and disappointed. All of my work on the masterpiece was in vain. A toaster that would never see competition. This false count had made a fool of me and my craftsmanship. I placed my face into my hands and blocked out the spectacle around me. I had never been so disappointed. I began to cry, and I hid my tears in my hands. Suddenly, amidst my self-pity, I noticed something very particular. The crowd was gasping. First, I thought something had happened to the king. I looked up to him. His eyes were wide, his mouth had dropped open, his hands were clenched around the arms of his chair as he stared towards the sky. I glanced to the man who wore the small glasses. He also looked at the sky. "What is that thing?" I heard someone beside me ask anxiously. He pointed to the sky with a rigid arm. In fact, all around me, men, women, boys, girls, dogs, cats, all looked at the sky with supreme curiosity. I took all this in instantly, and went and started towards the sky with the rest of them. High above the trees drifted a gigantic red and yellow ball. Every moment it seemed to become larger and larger. It was slowly descending down towards us. Soon everyone stared in silence as the thing moved towards the city square. As it came closer, it was obvious that the ball was a huge balloon with a basket attached. A man dressed in black stood in the basket. Before the balloon touched the ground, this man jumped out of the basket and landed on the ground beside the group of contestants. It was Count Alexander. Oh! The hero returneth. He jumped onto the platform where the king sat. As the balloon went soaring back in the air, the crowd gasped again. the late arrival. How long is this story? Jesus. The king sat still with a weary look in his gray eyes. The cat looked majestic, and I smiled as he bowed low before the king. Suddenly the king seemed a little more comfortable. "Offer you a gift, your royal highness," said the count with a voice that boomed. The king nodded his head slightly, and the count held out a copper case. One of the king's assistants brought the strange gift to the king. "It is a lizard, your highness, a reptile from the land across the ocean." The king showed his approval with a friendly nod, but the crowd released a corporate "Ah!" and the man beside me said, "This strange masked man has been across the ocean." This, the count turned towards the man in glasses and said, "I'd like to enter the contest." The crowd exclaimed. The king looked surprised. With a slight confusion, the man in glasses turned toward the king to ask a question. The king creased his forehead and gave a quick approving nod. "Very well," said the man with the glasses. He turned towards the count. He nervously picked a pen out of his shirt pocket. Looked down at the list. "What is your name, sir?" The crowd was still as quiet as night. The count slowly turned and faced them. As before, he was completely dressed in black, and his eyes sparkled through two small holes in the black mask. "My name," he said, "is Count Alexander." After such long preparations, the great games began. It passed quickly. Needless to say, Count Alexander surpassed everyone. And in the lead, Count Alexander and Phoebe Fay were in the lead. Count Alexander was leading by a comfortable 10 points. Only way he could lose the contest if he somehow failed the last game. Yodel toasters. Oh, we played that earlier. Last day came, and the entire town moved out to the Yodel Cliffs to watch the finalists play the last contest. The object of Yodel toasters was to drop a piece of bread from the top of the cliff down into the toaster at the bottom of the cliff. The toaster at the bottom of the cliff was controlled via remote control by the contestant. In this way, a contestant would be able to move the toaster back and forth to catch the bread. The toaster shot back up. The contestant would try to catch the toast and eat it before the other player catches and eats his toast. So many people were crowded around the bottom of the cliff, I couldn't see the contest. So I decided, perhaps unwisely, to find a higher place to watch the contest. I knew of a certain place on a cliff where I would have a good view of the games. I climbed there with much difficulty and arrived at my perch in time for the old toasters to begin. King himself came out for this game. There was much ceremony. Players were announced. There were 6 contestants, and all of them were greeted with cheering and celebration. Count Alexander walked out with a large black bag beneath his arm. The official toastmaster asked to see the toasters. From my position on the cliff, I could hear and see the awed silence of the townspeople as the count unveiled his toaster from the black bag. With the inspection completed, the man with small glasses yelled in a loud voice, "Let the final great game begin!" Cheers and cheers. The final games continued all day, and Count Alexander was remarkable. His toaster flashed like lightning. He was undefeated in every round of the event. Finally came the last round, and only Phoebe Fay and Count Alexander were left to contend. But even if Count Alexander were to lose this round, he was still ahead by 50 points. As a matter of fact, the only way that Count Alexander could lose is if he missed the toast altogether, which only the worst players do. He was virtually the winner and our new king of the town. I strode up to the edge where I had been sitting and began to cheer. "Hurrah!" I said. "Hurrah for Count Alexander! 3 cheers for Count Alexander!" Then did a very foolish thing. I began to dance. I began to wave my arms and clap my hands and run around in circles. "Hurrah for Count Alexander! Hurrah for Count Alexander! Hurrah!" This is when catastrophe happened. I slipped. Suddenly I found myself falling backwards through the air. If I were to have hit the ground, I surely would have died, but something caught me. I hit something that seemed bouncy like a trampoline. The catastrophe. The lights surrounded me. I suddenly found myself flying back up in the air. Moments later, I found myself in the arms of the Count. It happened too fast for me to know what had transpired. I only learned later what the Count had done to save my life. He had saw me as I fell from the cliff. Instead of catching his bread with the toaster, he used the remote control to move his toaster to catch me. Then he bounced me up into the air and caught me in his arms, and thus he lost the contest and the crown of our city by saving my life. The Count bravely descended the long rope ladder while holding me in his arms. The princess carried me all the way. He approached the king and set me down. The Count whispered admiration. "King," said the Count, "I have lost the contest, and Phoebe Fay will be made queen." "Yes," whispered the king, "but you've done a great and brave thing, worthy of a king." "Alas, your highness, I'm afraid I will never be a king." The king looked long and hard at the Count. The Count looked to the ground. "Count, there is no prize for second place." The Count did not respond. "Count," to the king, "you gave me a lizard. I'd like to give you a gift." Count looked up suddenly. If I had complete control of my kingdom, I'll give you my crown, but you seem like a worthy man. But there's the parliament, they don't allow that kind of thing. Instead, I'm only going to give you a portion of my kingdom. It's a small and insignificant portion, but you may at least go there and call yourself king. The Count did not respond. He stood tall and still, his eyes seemed to gleam for a moment. There's a place in the midst of the Yon Mountains, said the king, where no one lives. In the midst of this place is a cave. Count Alexander, you may have this place and that cave that exists there. You may name this cave what you wish, and you may call yourself king of that domain. The Count bowed low. Thank you, your highness, you're too kind. Then he continued talking as he stood straight and tall. I accept your gracious offer. I will be the king of this hidden place, and I shall name my domain Spelunx. I would grow up into an excited whisper. What did he say? Asked some. Spelunx. Asked the others. I wonder what it means. And the other said, the king has given a fine gift. Oh, hush, cried the king. He stood to his feet and quieted the crowd with his head. There was silence. Now, as the king turned towards the masked count, spoke loud, several clear. Spelunx is a strange name. What does it mean? And who are you, Count? The king's eyes became anxious and bright. The crowd seemed to lean forward in unison. I stared at the count with admiration and curiosity. A moment passed, the tension rose. I am, said the count as he slowly moved his head towards his mask. The crowd was tight and no one breathed. Professor Alexander Spelunx. With this, the count tore the mask from his face. The crowd gasped in shock. There on top of that enormous black figure was the head of what looked like a giant teddy bear. He's a teddy bear, yelled someone amidst the silence, and instantaneously the crowd broke into such an explosion of cheer and applauding I've never heard. And when I looked up in the eyes of Alexander Spelunx, I was surprised to see him struggling with a sort of shyness. He looked down at me, smiled, and bowed slightly towards the king, and romped almost clumsily away from the crowd and into the nearby woods. But not before picking up his toaster, of course. Suddenly a thought came into my mind. I scampered to the king off the king's platform, went running into the woods after the bear. It was not much trouble to catch him, and when I did, he grieved me happily. Count Spelunx, I said, catch your breath, my friend. You saved my life, Mr. Spelunx. I owe you my life in return. Nonsense, he said with a reassuring and very bear-like laugh. I hesitated and sat down nearby log. He adjusted a pair of gold spectacles that nested upon his nose and lit a small black pipe. Count Spelunx, I began, you saved my life, and I ruined your chances of becoming king. It's nothing. Don't worry about it. Don't even think about it. It's nothing. I just did the thing. So with a wave of his hand, he blew a ring of smoke in the trees above us. But I can't help but think about it, and I feel terrible. You must let me repay you. Come, let me live with you in your domain. I'll be your servant. Nonsense. I don't need a servant. I don't need one. Please? I think he saw how desperate I was to repay the debt I owed him. He sat across from me and looked me in the eyes for some time. The birds whistled above us and smoke rose from his pipe. Fine, he finally said. You may come live with me, but remember. And he pointed his pipe to my face and looked very serious for a moment. You're not my servant. You are my friend. Oh. Then he grinned a wide and happy grin. I think I may have sobbed slightly and wiped my nose on my sleeve. We set off together to the cave. Land he named after himself, Spelunx. There we built a kingdom and an expandable underground palace, and through the years we've become like brothers. I will forever be indebted to the bear who saved my life. 3 cheers for Professor Alexander Spelunx. The end. Oh, what? Oh, okay. Dear Diary. Today what I dreamed was a spaceport janitor who was haunted by a screaming skull. I had to occasionally change my gender, and that felt good. There we go.
Oh yes, welcome to Spelunx.
Okay. Well, there goes the rock. I see. Okay. Oh, I'm sorry, friendo. Oh, what? Okay. Yeah, play some Pong. Spelunx. Wee. Okay. Why don't you climb up the ladder, man? Get in the cave. Oh, I don't want to keep dropping you. Oh, hi. Oh, okay. Sorry. Trying to remove it. Okay. Oh, here we go. Here's a new area. Oh, T. Huh. Weird. Okay. That's a fun toy. Little animation machine. Okay. Maturity meter. Is this good? Uh-huh. Who knew? Okay. Tiny door. Pigtoad tree. Okay. 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 Yeah, I mean, you know, we're making music. I see. Okay, so that's how I... Okay. Oh, huh? I don't like this man. I don't like that man at all. Okay. This lead back into the... Oh, okay. Okay. Wow, navigating this place sucks butt. Okay. Yeah, it does not like me. Here in the secret underground world of Spelunx. You could have some signs or something, Doctor. No, go back up. I think that's probably enough Spelunx. Close the doors. There we are. Well, we certainly read an exciting story and explored the world of Spelunx. Seemed to have a lot of fun little games in it. That's nice. In any case, thank you for joining me on this journey. I'll see you later. Bye-bye.